A cave had sealed its exit, while a poisoned child bled nearby. Meanwhile, a trial disciple learned that a first-realm spider could still charge full admission. The beast had webbed the way out, which was rude in several ways, then forced him into a fight he could not walk away from. He found power where he needed it, drove the creature down, and still had to ask whether it was dead. That was the promise. One bad mountain trip became a rescue, a breakthrough, and a problem nobody could sweep aside. To see how it reached that point, the story began back at High Heaven Pavilion. Morning arrived at a small rural house with a rooster call and a creaking door. Nothing supernatural had happened yet. The day simply opened the way hard days often did, loudly, cheaply, and before anyone had been given a reason to enjoy it. A young disciple stepped outside and stretched, while the chickens reacted around him. He looked like someone trying to negotiate with dawn, using only a yawn. The birds offered no sign that they respected the argument. He picked up a broom and started his work. Only then did the story name him, Yang Kai, a disciple of High Heaven Pavilion. His opening declaration sounded determined, but the broom made the position clear. This was not a grand entrance. It was the maintenance shift. The introduction placed Yang Kai inside the sect before it explained his weakness. He belonged to High Heaven Pavilion, but belonging did not mean he had status there. The first thing attached to his name was a job that kept the grounds clean. Yang Kai explained that he had trained at the pavilion for 3 years. Even so, he had reached only tempered body 3rd stage. By his own assessment, that progress was not merely slow. It was painfully ordinary, which was a bad thing to be in a sect built around advancement. 3 years was long enough for the disappointment to become part of his daily routine. Yang Kai did not describe a single recent failure. He described a condition that had lasted long enough to define how other disciples saw him. Because his cultivation had stalled, Yang Kai had taken a cleaning job in the sect while continuing to train. High Heaven Pavilion was intensely competitive. The arrangement gave him work and a place to stay, but it did not give him security, comfort, or much room to fail. Sweeping kept Yang Kai inside the pavilion while he trained, but it also marked him as someone without the resources or standing of stronger disciples. He remained present in the institution without being protected by it. The pavilion's rule was brutally simple. Strong disciples advanced. Weak disciples were eliminated. Yang Kai worked beneath that system every day. He swept grounds where people measured each other by rank, victory, and advancement. The rule did not leave much space for slow improvement. A disciple could work hard and still be counted weak. Yang Kai had already learned that the pavilion judged results, not how much effort a person spent getting there. Young disciples were given a 3-year probationary period. During that time, the sect sponsored them and expected them to train. The support sounded generous on paper. It also came with a timer, which made the kindness feel a lot more like a test with paperwork. The probation period was meant to sort young disciples before they settled into ordinary lives. Yang Kai had entered it with the same opportunity as others. The difference was that the clock kept running after his progress stopped looking competitive. Those who broke through the tempered body stage could continue toward better masters and stronger sects. Those who failed had to leave or accept demotion to trial disciple. Yang Kai had already landed in the weaker position, so every day at the pavilion carried the same quiet threat. Demotion was not a temporary embarrassment in this setting. It changed welfare, status, and the route available to a disciple. Yang Kai had reached the part of the system where poor results carried practical consequences beyond a hurt pride. Yang Kai knew no one would rescue him from hunger, cold, or bad luck. He decided that abandoning the choice to train would be ridiculous. The resolve was real, even though his current work still kept a broom in his hands. His determination did not erase the material problem. It only explained why he stayed in the work, the cold, and the public losses. Yang Kai had chosen the path already, and he treated retreat as the one option he could not accept. Other disciples noticed Yang Kai before he could settle into the work. They recognized him immediately, which was not a compliment. His reputation had become public enough that another challenge looked less like an interruption and more like part of the daily schedule. The approaching disciples did not need to know Yang Kai personally to know his record. His defeats had made him legible to the crowd. That turned a private struggle with cultivation into a public role, Other people felt entitled to test. The group identified Yang Kai as the trial disciple still stuck at tempered body third stage. They also knew he had been challenged many times before. One voice objected that so many people against one man was unfair, but the crowd kept pressing for another challenge. An unnamed disciple told Yang Kai he was free to leave because nobody was stopping him. The remark did not offer an exit so much as a reminder of where the speaker believed Yang Kai belonged. The pressure was social, casual, and very deliberate. Yang Kai answered the provocation by sitting down to meditate. He did not swing first. He did not make a speech. He simply folded himself into practice, while the people waiting for a fight had to stand there and watch him become unavailable. Meditation served a practical purpose, but it also denied the crowd the reaction they wanted. Yang Kai's stillness created a pause where their taunts had expected movement. He controlled the only part of the encounter that was still fully his to control. The disciples could not understand why Yang Kai was seated. They urged him to stop wasting effort and let one of them beat him quickly. Yang Kai kept meditating. Their planned shortcut had been defeated by a man doing absolutely nothing flashy. A blue aura formed around Yang Kai as he continued to meditate. Even a nearby bird was startled by the change. The crowd had expected an easy target. Instead, the target had gone quiet and started producing a visible sign that something was happening beneath the surface. The morning bell rang 9 times as the sun rose. Yang Kai recognized the signal and ended the meditation. The interruption did not settle the tension with the waiting disciples. It only moved the day forward, leaving the challenge exactly where it had been. The bell gave the pavilion its formal rhythm. Yang Kai responded to that rhythm rather than to the challengers. The timing mattered because it showed that his practice, not the crowd's impatience, had decided when the pause ended. The disciples still surrounded Yang Kai, eager to be chosen. The challenge had become a small public event, with several people waiting for the chance to prove themselves against the pavilion's most convenient opponent. Several challengers shouted at once. One promised to go easy on Yang Kai. Another claimed he needed only one punch. Their confidence arrived before the fight did, turning the hallway into a noisy contest over who would face him first. Yang Kai was told to choose quickly. He threw his broom into the group. The movement turned selection into chance. It was the sort of decision made when everyone nearby volunteered to hit him. The thrown broom made the choice visible to everyone at once. Yang Kai did not negotiate terms or hunt for the weakest available opponent. He accepted the selection method in front of the crowd and let the object settle the immediate dispute. The broom landed before a brown-haired disciple. The chosen disciple laughed and declared that he had been selected, asking the others not to blame him. The thrown broom had made the selection public, and the challenge now had a clear opponent. The selected opponent was named Zhou Dingjun. Yang Kai remained a trial disciple at tempered body third stage, while Zhou was an ordinary disciple at tempered body fifth stage. The gap was now written plainly enough that nobody had to pretend this was an even match. The comparison was not subtle. Zhou Dingjun's fifth stage placed him above Yang Kai's third, and his ordinary disciple status reinforced the same hierarchy. The panel established the mismatch before either fighter had landed a meaningful blow. High Heaven Pavilion divided disciples by rank, with elite disciples feeding into the core group that would eventually lead the pavilion. Zhou stood above Yang Kai in that hierarchy. The duel was therefore not only a fight, it was a demonstration of the system Yang Kai was trying to survive. The rank structure explained why the crowd cared about the result. Advancement at the pavilion was not decorative. Rank affected who would be chosen for leadership and who would remain easy to overlook, as Yang Kai had been. Yang Kai thanked Zhou Dingjun for the opportunity and opened with long punch, a basic technique for lower-level disciples. Zhou recognized it immediately. Yang Kai had stepped forward using a familiar move against someone who had the stronger realm, and no reason to be surprised. Zhou Dingjun avoided the long punch and drove in a counterattack. Yang Kai was shocked by the reversal. The first exchange did not give him a heroic opening. It gave him a direct lesson in what two cultivation stages of difference looked like at close range. Yang Kai had started with a recognized basic technique, and Zhou had answered without difficulty. That did not prove Yang Kai lacked skill. It showed that the first exchange was being decided by more than a single correctly thrown punch. Zhou Dingjun kept attacking, while Yang Kai fell back and reacted narrowly. The fight moved fast, but the imbalance remained clear. Yang Kai had to read each attack correctly, just to remain standing long enough to try something of his own. Yang Kai found a brief opening and grabbed Zhou Dingjun's arm. Zhou reacted with surprise. It was the first small crack in the stronger disciple's certainty, and Yang Kai had created it without changing the wider problem of the realm gap. For a moment, Yang Kai had converted speed and timing into contact. Zhou's surprise confirmed that the move had worked. The problem was that one successful opening still had to survive the next exchange against a stronger body. Zhou realized he had been tricked, then decided it did not matter. His confidence rested on his higher cultivation. A single surprise did not erase the advantage. He believed he carried in strength, durability, and the ability to put Yang Kai down again. Yang Kai was knocked down. Zhou concluded that Yang Kai's punch was faster, but his body was too weak to endure the exchange. Zhou even admitted that a lower realm would have changed the result. That admission mattered because it showed Yang Kai's technique had reached him. Zhou's reasoning revealed the shape of the fight. Yang Kai could be faster and still lose because his body could not absorb the response. The higher stage gave Zhou the confidence to treat damage as a problem Yang Kai could not solve. Zhou started treating the fight as finished. The spectators discussed surrender rules and assumed Yang Kai could no longer continue. Zhou's victory speech arrived early, which was risky in any fight and especially risky when the other man had not actually surrendered. Yang Kai rose and answered with another attempt. He used a leg whip, startling Zhou Dingjun. Zhou recognized the technique and realized it could be used in a way he had not expected. Yang Kai was still hurt, but he had not become passive. The leg whip did more than land a strike. It forced Zhou to revise his understanding of Yang Kai's ability. Yang Kai's techniques were not enough to erase the realm gap, but they were enough to make the stronger disciple pay attention. Zhou slammed Yang Kai down again. Yang Kai's response was not a retreat or a negotiation. He asked to continue. The repeated request changed the duel. It became a question of how many times Yang Kai could force it to continue. Yang Kai demanded another round once more. The crowd recognized that he would not surrender while conscious. Zhou called him a maniac. The label came from frustration, but the pattern was now clear. Yang Kai's loss record did not mean he had learned how to quit. The spectators measured surrender by consciousness, and Yang Kai remained conscious. That narrow rule became his opening. As long as he could rise or speak, he could demand that the fight continue and deny Zhou the clean finish he expected. Bruised and exhausted, Yang Kai still refused to surrender. Zhou Dingjun warned that Yang Kai could die if he continued. The warning did not change the immediate result. Yang Kai stayed in the fight despite being visibly battered and already outmatched. Yang Kai attacked again. Zhou Dingjun reacted with alarm and called out to him. The stronger disciple had expected a challenge he could win. He had not expected the weaker opponent to keep treating each knockdown as a reason to restart. Zhou answered with a heavy blow that sent Yang Kai away. Both fighters were stunned by the force of it. This was the moment where persistence stopped looking merely stubborn and started carrying a real physical cost. The heavy counter ended the duel's momentum. Yang Kai's body could no longer keep answering the same way, and Zhou's strength finally produced the separation the crowd had expected. The fight stopped being a contest of will and became an aftermath. A masked woman in purple observed the duel and recorded the result in a book. The entry named Yang Kai as the trial disciple and Zhou Dingjun as the ordinary disciple who won. The observer's current record associated her with Zia Ning Chang, but that identity remained review flag. The written result made Zhou's victory official. It also fixed Yang Kai's defeat inside the pavilion's records. The masked observer did not intervene, praise either fighter, or explain herself. She watched, wrote, and allowed the institution to remember. The observer belonged to the pavilion's Dark Hall, a task force under the Third Elder. Dark Hall recorded events inside the sect, including duels and contribution points. At High Heaven Pavilion, even a beating could become administrative data if the right person wrote it down. The ledger showed Yang Kai's 147th challenge ending in defeat. It also listed another dated failed challenge. The number turned his reputation into a documented record. He was not simply the man who lost often. He was the man with enough losses to require bookkeeping. The ledger did not soften the number with context. It presented a date, a challenge count, and a defeat. Yang Kai's persistence looked stranger when reduced to a line of records, because the records kept repeating the same outcome. The masked recorder wondered why Yang Kai remained after so many defeats, demotion, and neglected welfare. She questioned whether his persistence was a man's folly. The story did not settle that question here. It only showed that even an observer found his refusal unusual. Yang Kai woke under a tree and could not remember passing out there. The fight had ended without his awareness. The missing transition left him with the same immediate problem as before. He was injured, alone, and still had no explanation for who had moved him. Waking under the tree left Yang Kai with a gap in his memory and no witness he could question. The scene quietly introduced a second mystery beside the loss itself. Someone had acted after the fight, but no one stepped forward to claim it. Yang Kai noticed drag marks and realized someone had pulled him into the shade. He was surprised because no one had done that for him before. The helper remained unidentified. All Yang Kai had was the evidence of being moved and the uncomfortable reminder that he had been dragged while injured. The drag marks gave Yang Kai a reason to believe help had happened, but not enough information to identify the person. He could only infer the action from the ground and his new position. The source kept the helper outside the frame. Yang Kai complained that the dragging had worsened his bleeding injuries. Then he noticed a bottle of blood-clotting cream. The discovery shifted the scene immediately. Whoever had moved him had not only acted, they had left medicine that Yang Kai could not casually afford. Yang Kai recognized the blood-clotting cream and calculated its cost at 10 contribution points. Sweeping for a month would not cover it. He also noticed that the medicine was scented. The gift was practical, expensive, and far more deliberate than merely pulling someone under a tree. 10 contribution points was a concrete measure of the gift. Yang Kai immediately understood what that value meant relative to his sweeping work. The medicine was not an ordinary kindness. It was a resource with real weight in his circumstances. Yang Kai promised that he would not forget the unknown helper's deed and would repay it someday. He still did not know who had helped him or why. He only carried the obligation forward, then returned to his simple room with the medicine. Back in the room, Yang Kai removed his clothing and examined the bruising on his back before treating the injuries. The fight had left a visible mark. The quiet room gave the aftermath more weight than the crowd had, because no one else was there to turn it into entertainment. Yang Kai used the blood-clotting cream carefully and diluted it. He knew dilution would weaken the medicine, but the bottle was too valuable to waste. The calculation was simple. Recovery mattered, and so did having medicine left for later. Yang Kai's caution was not greed or hesitation. It was a response to scarcity. He needed relief now. He also had to avoid using the whole remedy before another injury arrived. Yang Kai repeated the same practical choice as he finished treating his injuries. The cream would help, but he could not use it freely. He rested with the cost of the medicine still hanging over him, because even healing had to fit inside his very limited resources. Sleep did not give Yang Kai an ordinary night. A purple pillow-like glow surrounded his head as he dreamed of confronting an opponent. The room remained the room, but the dream placed him inside a fight shaped by the pressure that had followed him through the day. In the dream, Yang Kai charged an opponent called Zhou Jun. Zhou Jun abruptly evolved, while Yang Kai continued the attack. The name was not established as Zhou Ding Jun and remained a separate review-flagged identity. The dream gave Yang Kai a target, but not a reliable explanation. The dream gave Yang Kai a version of the fight where he could charge forward instead of being cornered by a crowd. Zhou Jun's appearance supplied a name within the dream, but the final evidence did not allow that name to be merged with Zhou Ding Jun. Yang Kai defeated Zhou Jun in the dream and boasted that nothing in the world frightened him anymore. The victory lasted only as long as the dream allowed. It was a bold declaration from a man whose waking day had mostly involved being knocked down. A purple shadowy hand struck Yang Kai in the dream. The attack broke the moment and startled him awake. Whatever the dream had been, it did not end as a simple fantasy about winning. Something inside it had turned hostile. Yang Kai dismissed the nightmare as silly, then noticed he had slept only 2 hours. That detail did not fit the experience he had just lived through. The dream had felt long enough for a fight, a victory, and an ambush, yet almost no time had passed. Yang Kai's attempt to laugh off the dream collided with the 2-hour gap. The short sleep made the experience harder to dismiss, not easier. Something had compressed a long, violent sequence into a small piece of the night. Yang Kai picked up the black rock he had found while hunting in the mountains. It no longer felt as heavy as before. The change was small enough to invite doubt, but strange enough that he stopped and examined it instead of treating it like an ordinary stone. The black rock floated, glowed purple, and opened into a book. Yang Kai did not force the transformation. He watched it happen. The object had moved from inexplicable weight to inexplicable artifact, with the purple phenomenon linking it back to the night. Purple light had already appeared around Yang Kai's sleep. The same color around the floating rock gave him reason to connect the events. He still could not explain how they were linked. The opened book fell to the floor, and Yang Kai reached toward it. The moment ended on a simple action. He had an object he did not understand, but he was no longer willing to leave it alone. Curiosity had become the next step. Yang Kai discovered that the opened black book was blank and unusually hard to tear. He remembered finding it as a black rock during mountain hunting and never expecting it to be a book. Its empty pages did not make it harmless. They made it harder to explain. Yang Kai asked what use a black book had without words. Golden text appeared in response, speaking of blood, a golden body, and a golden immortal. The inscription named concepts, but it did not identify a person Yang Kai could trust or understand. The book did not explain the inscription in plain terms. It supplied a ritual phrase and grand titles instead. Yang Kai had moved from a blank book to a text that seemed to demand a response, which made an action feel less possible. Yang Kai felt a fearful aura coming from the words. He had wanted an explanation. Instead, the book answered with something that made the room feel less safe. The shift turned curiosity into caution, without giving him a way to put the object down. More glowing text completed the verse, and Yang Kai connected the book's transformation to the earlier dream. He did not prove the link. He only recognized that the timing was too strange to ignore. The black rock, the purple glow, and the dream now sat in the same unanswered chain. Yang Kai chose to test the inscription. He cut his finger and let blood fall onto the book while repeating its opening words. The action was deliberate. He had no guarantee that the book would help him, but he had evidence that it responded to things he did not understand. Giving blood was Yang Kai's choice, not a confirmed safe procedure. The book had requested it through its inscription, and he tested that request. The decision matched the stubbornness already shown in the duel, but the risk now came from something he could not fight normally. The book consumed the blood, formed a dark vortex, and burst with golden light. Yang Kai repeated the line about blood and the golden body as the reaction intensified. The test had worked, but it had produced a result far larger than a page turning or a hidden message. A golden skeletal figure emerged as the dark vortex faded. The figure was visible, but its identity was not established. The earlier inscription had mentioned a golden immortal. The apparition was skeletal and golden. The record kept those ideas connected, without declaring them identical. The apparition's arrival answered one question and opened several more. The book could produce something visible and powerful. It still did not say what the figure wanted. It also did not establish whether it was the golden immortal named by the text. Yang Kai interpreted the skeleton's grin as mockery and refused to be intimidated. He challenged the figure's arrogance rather than retreating. The shard ended with Yang Kai facing an unknown supernatural presence, still injured in circumstance but unwilling to act small before it. The black book had stopped being a strange household object. Its golden skeletal energy pressed into Yang Kai's chest. It spread across him like a claim being filed. The room offered no explanation. Yang Kai only had pain, light, and a supernatural tenant who had skipped the introduction. He had found the book because he wanted strength. Now the book appeared interested in taking the entire apartment. The pressure did not look gentle. It looked like the beginning of a hostile takeover. Yang Kai cried out as the skeletal force crawled through his body. The earlier dual injuries had already left him bruised and exhausted. This new problem made Zhou Dingjun's fists feel almost polite. Golden cracks and pain kept moving through him. Nothing suggested that the book had chosen him for a peaceful training seminar. It had chosen a method with more screaming. Yang Kai remained trapped inside the attack, but he did not surrender his awareness. That mattered because the force was not merely hurting him. It was trying to occupy the space where his will belonged. Yang Kai finally understood the immediate danger. He believed the Golden Immortal intended to seize his consciousness and body. The identity behind that title remained unresolved. The threat did not. Yang Kai refused to bow down. He had spent 3 years being dismissed, challenged, and knocked around by stronger disciples. That history had not made this easier. It had made surrender a difficult sell. So he resisted the force directly. The moment stayed simple. A weak trial disciple faced an unknown supernatural intruder. Yang Kai had no polished plan. He had only refusal, and he used all of it. Then the assault ended. Yang Kai woke in his room and immediately noticed the missing pane. His body had been battered before the book incident. Now those injuries had vanished. He questioned the black book because it had caused the disaster and apparently solved part of it. That was not comforting. A trap that cleaned up after itself was still a trap. Yang Kai had no confirmation that the Golden Immortal was destroyed, expelled, or merely waiting. The source gave him recovery, not certainty. He was alive, healed, and still sharing a story with an artifact that had just tried to take his body. Yang Kai tested his own condition instead of declaring victory. He felt stronger than before. His injuries had disappeared, yet he still judged himself to be at tempered body 3rd stage. That distinction mattered. The change was real, but he could not attach a clean realm increase to it. His body had improved without giving him a neat label. Cultivation usually loved labels. This result arrived without one. Yang Kai treated the new strength as evidence, not an answer. The book had altered him. The golden force had failed or paused. The remaining question was whether that failure had left him safer or simply better prepared for the next attempt. Yang Kai asked for the black book, and it appeared before him. The command worked. He told it to disappear, then called it back again. The book obeyed both times. That gave him basic control over an object whose deeper control remained uncertain. He could summon it. He could dismiss it. He could not yet explain its origin, its pages, or the golden being attached to it. Still, Yang Kai had gained one practical advantage. The dangerous book no longer needed to sit openly beside his bed like a suspicious brick. It could vanish until he chose to face it again. Yang Kai returned to the book and considered its material. He believed it was a soulstone. The text described soulstones as products of immense, ghostly accumulation and human vitality. Yang Kai immediately imagined what such a treasure could mean. High Heaven Pavilion had once looked like the whole mountain. With this object, he imagined surpassing the pavilion and even greater masters. The fantasy was enormous. His current position was not. Yang Kai still stood at the 3rd stage, with a cleaning job and little money. The contrast was almost rude. Cosmic treasure, empty pockets, same boy. The treasure did not make Yang Kai careless for long. He recognized that possessing it created another problem. A weak owner could not guard a powerful object. Yang Kai decided that training remained the only useful response. The black book had pages he had not explored. It might contain more treasures. It might contain more dangers. Both possibilities encouraged caution. Yang Kai did not treat possession as achievement. He treated it as a debt he needed strength to pay. That kept the moment grounded. The book offered potential. Yang Kai still needed a body and technique capable of surviving what potential demanded. A page revealed the proud golden body, tempered body record. Knowledge entered Yang Kai's mind with the book's usual lack of ceremony. This time the result was useful rather than immediately hostile. The record gave him a cultivation path instead of another riddle. Yang Kai had struggled for years with ordinary progress. Now he had a named method connected to the same strange power that had healed him. He did not know every limit of that connection. He did know the record had arrived through the book. That made it valuable. It also made it worth treating carefully. Yang Kai studied the first requirement. The tempered body record had to be practiced facing the rising sun. Its window lasted only half an hour each day. The limitation irritated him because the method looked powerful. A cultivation technique with premium results had arrived with office hours. Yang Kai could not train it whenever panic struck. He had to meet dawn and use the short interval well. He accepted the condition. The method had strict form, and the first kick was not as simple as it looked. Yang Kai went asleep knowing the next morning would test more than his enthusiasm. Before dawn, Yang Kai left his room and began the routine. He did not receive an audience or a shortcut. He received cold morning practice and a body that protested. The record required precision. Yang Kai worked through its stance, footwork, and movement while the sun rose. His earlier cultivation life had taught him patience without much reward. That same patience now became useful. He had only 30 minutes. He could not waste them admiring the technique's name. Proud golden body sounded grand. The actual work looked like a young disciple forcing his limbs to obey. The routine punished him immediately. Yang Kai's bones cracked, his body shook, and pain followed the movements. The scene did not prove mastery. It proved that the method demanded more than ordinary training. Yang Kai kept going because the record had already shown value. He had no reason to expect this first attempt would be graceful. The important fact was that he continued. Dawn practice became a hard appointment with his own limits. The book had provided the method. Yang Kai provided the refusal to quit when the method answered with pain. Yang Kai measured the first result honestly. He had only completed the first 3 steps of the 6 palms instruction. That was not even 1% of the tempered body record's apparent potential. Yet those few steps had already pushed him close to collapse. He knew the gap between the method's promise and his present capacity. The gap did not send him away. Yang Kai decided to persist. His old training had produced years of slow movement. This new training produced immediate pain and visible possibility. Between those options, pain had suddenly become the better investment. Yang Kai forced himself through another strike after admitting how little of the record he had completed. The movement was not decorative. It continued the same painful first lesson. He gasped when the practice ended because the method asked his body to work beyond its familiar limits. The panel did not add a new technique or a new rank. It showed the cost between them. Yang Kai kept using the 6 palms instruction despite that cost. His progress had become faster, but it had not become free. Each movement still required him to choose persistence again. The strain built until Yang Kai broke through. The change arrived during the same half-hour practice window that had nearly folded him in half. He steadied himself afterward, but the result was unmistakable. The record had done something his previous routine had not managed in 3 years. It moved him forward. Yang Kai did not celebrate before checking the change. He had learned that unusual power came with unusual terms. Still, the breakthrough was real. The body that had been stuck at the 3rd stage had finally crossed a boundary. Yang Kai recognized the new state as tempered body 4th stage. He compared half an hour with the 3 years it had taken to reach the previous stage. The difference stunned him. His old progress had been a long uphill walk. The record had turned one morning into a step upward. Yang Kai understood the technique was exceptionally effective. He also understood that the result did not erase the need for more work. A fast breakthrough gave him hope, not immunity. He had moved from being overlooked to being dangerous enough that his own body needed time to catch up. After the breakthrough, Yang Kai expelled dark impurities from his body. He recognized the cleansing process, but not its speed. Tempered body practice was supposed to reduce impurities. This version did so far more aggressively than his earlier experience. Yang Kai also kept his expectations measured. He had advanced in realm, yet he believed he had barely begun the record's first technique. 1% was his estimate. The number gave the moment scale. He had already crossed a stage. The technique still had almost all of its potential unopened. Yang Kai had found a ladder, not the summit. After dawn training, Yang Kai returned to sweeping. A masked woman watched him from a distance. The episode evidence did not establish her identity, so she remained an unidentified observer here. Yang Kai did not react to her. He had another problem. The tempered body record used only half an hour each day. The rest of the day still belonged to ordinary work, hunger, points, and the pavilion's social weather. He kept sweeping. The supernatural breakthrough did not cancel the broom. It merely made the broom's owner stronger. Other disciples noticed Yang Kai sweeping one spot for more than an hour. They called him strange. From their view, he looked like a disciple who had developed a personal argument with the floor. Yang Kai was actually thinking about training time. The new method worked, but its daily limit left him with a large empty schedule. He could not simply repeat the record all day. The scene preserved an ordinary problem inside an extraordinary change. Yang Kai had gained a powerful technique. He still needed to decide what to do after breakfast. A fellow disciple bumped into Yang Kai and recoiled. Yang Kai's body felt like a brick wall. The fellow disciple did not receive a full explanation. He only received the physical evidence and decided to leave quickly. That reaction showed the breakthrough had changed more than Yang Kai's private sense of strength. Other people could feel it. Yang Kai stayed calm. He had not announced a new rank. He had not challenged anyone. His body had simply become harder to ignore. The pavilion had spent years treating him as weak. That assumption had begun to crack. The 8th day of the month brought contribution points. Yang Kai calculated the result. Sweeping earned 10 points. 6 defeats cost him 1 point each. He received 4. The arithmetic had the energy of a villain with a ledger. Yang Kai could have treated the amount as proof that effort was pointless. Instead, he went to the contribution hall. His poverty remained concrete. 4 points would not buy rare herbs or solve cultivation. But points were still a path, however narrow. Yang Kai had spent 3 years surviving narrow paths. At the contribution hall, Yang Kai found Treasurer Meng asleep. Yang Kai woke him. Meng recognized the young disciple immediately. The meeting did not begin with grand instruction. It began with a tired treasurer, a poor disciple, and a monthly balance that looked insulting. That made the exchange useful. Meng occupied a place where points, medicine, and practical access met. Yang Kai needed all three. He had a breakthrough behind him, but he still lacked supplies. The next part of his training depended on whether a small account could become something more. Meng complained that Yang Kai had arrived after the morning crowd. Yang Kai answered that the hall was quieter later. Their argument stayed small, which suited the setting. Meng had been interrupted while sleeping. Yang Kai needed points. Neither man had the patience for ceremony. The scene also showed their familiarity. Yang Kai could address Meng directly. Meng could scold him without sending him away. That did not make Yang Kai secure. It made Meng one of the few adults in the pavilion willing to speak to him, as if his future mattered. Yang Kai exchanged 10 silver for 3 contribution points. Combined with the 4 points from sweeping, he reached 12. Meng offered blood clotting cream, but Yang Kai declined. He remembered exactly what that medicine cost, because an unknown helper had once left it for him. 12 points still could not buy the precious herbs he wanted. The number sounded better than 4. It did not solve much. Yang Kai treated the balance as savings, not spending money. His cultivation plan required patience, even after the record had taught him how quickly progress could happen. Meng asked why Yang Kai kept saving for a tempered essence pellet. At Yang Kai's pace, Meng said, the wait could outlast him by centuries. Yang Kai still believed he would eventually earn enough. He then asked why precious pellet remained unredeemed in the hall. Meng admitted it was his private treasure. The promise became personal. Meng said he would honor the agreed exchange. Yang Kai accepted that promise as a reason to keep working. The pellet did not sit in his hand. It sat far ahead of him, like a reward printed on a distant receipt. Meng's concern eventually became direct. He told Yang Kai to return to where he came from. High Heaven Pavilion, Meng warned, might cost him his life. Yang Kai answered that he had nowhere else to go. That response explained his persistence better than any dual record. He did not remain because the pavilion was kind. He remained because leaving offered no clear refuge. Yang Kai had a new technique, a little hope and no safe exit. Meng's warning did not change his decision. It showed that someone else understood how dangerous that decision could become. After Yang Kai left, Meng admitted that the tempered essence pellet story had been encouragement. Meng did not own such a treasure. The promise had been a lie meant to keep Yang Kai moving. That did not erase the care behind it. It did change the facts. Yang Kai's distant reward was not waiting in the hall after all. The story then moved to Black Plum Village. Yang Kai had entered another place where survival depended less on grand cultivation and more on whether ordinary people chose to help each other. In Black Plum Village, Yang Kai noticed a change in himself. He usually felt anxious and short of breath there. This time he did not. He wondered whether the golden skeleton caused that difference. The source did not confirm the mechanism. Yang Kai only observed the result. He also saw fellow disciples nearby, including an unnamed scarred disciple. Their identities remained unresolved. Yang Kai did not stop to investigate them. He continued toward the rice shop, carrying his own questions about the golden skeleton and his very practical need for food. At the rice shop, the woman proprietor asked Yang Kai about his usual monthly purchase. One sack of rice did not look like enough for him. Yang Kai said it was barely sufficient. She did not believe him. Yang Kai admitted he sometimes hunted in the mountains to manage hunger. The conversation stayed factual and kind. His thin body had made the answer obvious before he said it. The shop did not become a palace of charity. It remained a small business. That made the couple's attention more important. They noticed what the pavilion routinely ignored. The woman and the man, addressed as Uncle He, arranged more rice for Yang Kai. They claimed the stock was old and infested. Yang Kai understood the excuse. The rice had always been good. The couple simply hid their generosity behind a sales problem that nobody needed to solve. It was a small lie with a useful outcome. Yang Kai protested because they also needed to make a living. They continued anyway. The episode did not establish a registry identity that merged this Uncle He label with Boss He later. Here the facts were simpler. Yang Kai received food. Yang Kai thanked Uncle He. He recognized that the couple had repeatedly found excuses to help him. Their good rice had been disguised as old stock. The moment did not fix Yang Kai's life. It gave him 1 month with less fear about meals. That was meaningful in a story where a few contribution points mattered. Yang Kai left the shop with food and a clearer picture of who had treated him decently. The village kindness also raised the stakes for what followed. A shop that helped him was about to become the target of a public accusation. The rice shop owner offered Yang Kai food and told him to come back whenever hunger became a problem. Before the quiet exchange could settle, an angry man entered carrying an ill companion. The companion looked weak. The interruption changed the room immediately. A place built around rice and small kindness became a scene of alarm. Yang Kai stayed present. The owner asked what the men wanted. The angry man did not arrive for food. He arrived with a charge, a sick brother, and enough volume to turn a private dispute into a public spectacle. The accuser demanded the owner's identity and blamed poisoned rice for his brother's condition. He described his brother as previously healthy and accused the shopkeeper of pursuing profit without conscience. The claim was serious. The evidence was not yet settled. The owner denied it. Yang Kai watched the exchange, rather than accepting the first loud story. The man had brought a sick body into the shop. That created urgency. It also created pressure. The rice shop suddenly faced an improvised courtroom, where one side had arrived carrying its own exhibit. Yang Kai recognized both men from the alley, while the accusation continued. That recognition stayed personal to him at first. The source did not identify the blue-robed interrupter, and Yang Kai did not invent a name for him. He only knew that the supposed strangers had appeared in the same earlier setting. The accuser reacted when Yang Kai spoke. That reaction gave the moment weight. It did not yet reveal the entire arrangement. Yang Kai had moved from concern for Uncle He to an evidence-based suspicion that the complaint had been organized. Yang Kai called the owner Uncle He, as the owner denied responsibility. Uncle He did not respond with threats. He said the illness had nothing to do with him. He also tried to avoid a wider disaster for the shop. The accusers kept pushing. Their words focused on poisoned rice, dying customers, and virtue. Yang Kai paid attention to the shape of the argument. The men talked about justice, while rejecting the possibility of ordinary treatment. The contradiction did not prove their scheme yet. It gave Yang Kai a reason to keep questioning the performance. Uncle He offered money for medical treatment, even while denying he caused the illness. The accuser rejected that practical answer. He insisted on moral outrage instead. Yang Kai questioned how men who called themselves virtuous could behave that way. His question did not resolve the accusation. It exposed the gap between the stated emergency and the accuser's choices. If the brother was truly dying, treatment should have mattered. Instead, the argument kept circling reputation and blame. Yang Kai had seen enough strange behavior to suspect that the illness was not the entire story. The owner asked what the men actually wanted. A blue-robed man interrupted before they answered. Yang Kai recognized the accusers from an earlier alley encounter. That recognition changed his position. He no longer watched a random complaint. He saw people he had already connected outside the shop. The blue-robed man's identity remained unresolved at this point. The accusation remained unresolved too. Yang Kai had enough information to distrust the scene, but not enough to name the entire plan. The next chapter would make the connection more visible. Yang Kai watched the group and noticed that the people involved knew one another. The apparently poisoned man, the accuser, and the long-haired disciple did not look like strangers brought together by bad rice. Yang Kai asked what they were doing. He did not yet announce a final answer. That restraint mattered. The source showed suspicion growing from what he had seen, not from secret knowledge. Yang Kai had watched the men in the alley. Now he watched them perform concern inside the rice shop. The pieces began to sit beside each other. The long-haired disciple and a scarred man argued beside the shop. The scarred man described the poison as serious. He said the group had come to warn others about the owner's evil. The language aimed high. It promised protection for future victims. Yang Kai had already noticed that the supposed victims and rescuers knew each other. The scene began to resemble a hero play, with the cast standing too close together. That was a grounded problem, not a joke about their injuries. Their stated goal was warning the public. Their arrangement made the warning difficult to trust. Yang Kai questioned Uncle He about possible enemies. Uncle He said he had none. The rice shop was only a humble way to survive. Yang Kai then saw the situation turn violent. An attacker lunged at the long-haired disciple. The action gave the performance a new scene. The apparent victim had been too sick to stand, yet another member of the group could still launch an attack at the convenient moment. Yang Kai did not need to invent a motive to see the timing was strange. He warned the long-haired disciple to look out. The long-haired disciple avoided the attack. The attacker responded by praising that avoidance despite the supposed poisoning. The line made the contradiction visible. A man presented as badly poisoned had entered a confrontation and then commented on another fighter's skill. Yang Kai had already suspected a staged accusation. This exchange gave the crowd more to question. The story did not need a hidden narrator to call it suspicious. The people involved kept supplying their own problems. Yang Kai watched the act wobble under the weight of its details. Yang Kai explained what he believed had happened. The men had played the roles of foul attackers and an honorable protector. Their aim was reputation. Yang Kai said he would have believed them too if he had not seen them together earlier. The crowd reacted. The accusers called him a brat and told him to stay out of it. Yang Kai did not move aside. The rice shop had offered him food when he needed it. Now he had evidence that the public drama around it was false. He chose the shop over the performance. The long-haired disciple identified himself as Su Mu from High Heaven Pavilion. The defeated men said they would remember Yang Kai. Su Mu's appearance did not resolve his role. It established his name and pavilion affiliation. His self-introduction arrived during a scene Yang Kai had already judged suspicious. That timing made Su Mu important, not automatically guilty. Yang Kai now had a name for one participant. The accusers remained unnamed. The crowd had seen enough to doubt the accusation. The larger scheme still needed to unfold before Yang Kai could prove who arranged it. Su Mu told the attackers to leave. Yang Kai objected. He believed that letting them walk away would let the scheme succeed. He reasoned that the rice shop was only one possible target. Other local businesses could be next. Yang Kai's conclusion moved the story beyond a single argument. The accused men had threatened a livelihood. The crowd had not finished deciding what consequences they deserved. Su Mu had a name, a polished entrance, and an uncertain purpose. Yang Kai had refused to let a staged rescue close with everyone applauding. The village dispute had become a problem that could not be solved by one graceful exit. With the scheme exposed, the mood outside the rice shop changed fast. The crowd no longer saw two unfortunate brothers and a poisoned victim. They saw two men trying to walk away from a mess they had helped build. Shopkeepers warned that letting them go would invite the same trouble back through their own doors. Then a dark-haired man stepped in, called the long-haired disciple his brother, and proposed a proper capture. The long-haired man clearly did not enjoy that family introduction. The Rescue Act had just acquired a committee, which was bad news for anybody hoping to quietly exit through the side door. The dark-haired disciple announced that he also belonged to High Heaven Pavilion and had spent nearly 3 years there. He dressed the plan in every respectable phrase available. Finish good deeds thoroughly, uphold justice, help Mr. He helped Black Plum Village. The villagers loved it. They praised the pavilion, praised the speech, and urged the two disciples to take the accused men together. On paper, it sounded like a clean public arrest. In practice, everyone was now watching the long-haired man very closely, and his plan had begun to wobble like a stool with one short leg. Inside his own thoughts, the long-haired man admitted that the situation had spiraled away from his plan. He decided the safest move was to let the two men escape when an opening appeared. He even winked at them. That tiny signal landed about, as well as a confession written on a brick. A neighbor called for everyone to help instead of watching, and the crowd rushed in. The two accused men were beaten before the long-haired man could create his escape route. By the end, one complained about his face. The long-haired man regretted what he had done, and he warned someone not to call his name. The source did not name him in this chapter. The public response in Black Plum Village mattered because it did not begin with a sect order or a formal court. It began with merchants and neighbors, deciding that the alleged poisoning case touched their own safety. They feared a shop losing business, a village losing trust, and a pair of men returning to repeat the trick. That pressure forced every participant to choose a role in full view of the crowd. The unnamed dark-haired disciple chose the language of justice. The long-haired man chose private damage control. The accused men chose survival. Yang Kai did not need to name every connection at once. He only needed to keep the arrangement from closing neatly around the people it had targeted. Yang Kai then pushed the scene into a sharper test. The crowd already called the accused men repeat offenders who had preyed on local merchants. Yang Kai proposed ending their crimes permanently. Su Mu, who had been willing to stand beside the public performance, suddenly hesitated. He asked whether that was excessive. It was a useful reversal. Once the consequences became real, the heroic posture stopped looking comfortable. The town square had turned into a moral examination, and the answer sheet was now sitting directly in Su Mu's lap. Yang Kai kept the pressure on. If the rice merchant's business had been destroyed, he asked, how would that man survive? The attackers had tried to ruin a livelihood. Yang Kai argued that actions carried a price. Su Mu insisted they could not simply kill the men, while the accused men began threatening him in return. Yang Kai noticed the soft spot immediately. Why was Su Mu so reluctant to punish them? Did he know them? The question mattered more than the shouting. It shifted the scene from a dispute about poisoned rice into a problem of connections, responsibility, and who had expected the crowd to believe the performance. Yang Kai challenged Su Mu to uphold the law for the village. Su Mu claimed he was not afraid of taking a life. That boast gave the trapped men exactly what they needed. One called Su Mu a treacherous bastard and said they had agreed to slander the rice merchant, so Su Mu could rescue him and become a hero. The accusation continued in front of everyone. Su Mu had allegedly designed the plan to impress Boss He's daughter. The visible record did not establish Boss He as the same resolved identity as the earlier uncle he labeled. It did establish the public collapse of Su Mu's rescue story. His grand entrance had become a very expensive public misunderstanding. Yang Kai's tactic was not a speech about abstract virtue. He pushed the visible claims until the people making them had to live with their own wording. The attackers had been presented as criminals. If that description was true, why did Su Mu hesitate when the punishment became severe? If he was truly there to protect the village, why did the accused men speak as though he belonged to their side? Those questions were grounded in the scene itself. Each answer tightened the trap. The men finally named the slander plan. By then, the crowd had moved from suspicion to a direct account of how a fake rescue could manufacture praise for its rescuer. The accused men tried to defend themselves by arguing that destroying another person's livelihood would also damage their own. Then the money surfaced. When Yang Kai asked what success would have earned them, one answered, 50 silver. The crowd reacted immediately. 50 silver made the arrangement look less like principle and more like paid theater. Onlookers condemned Su Mu and contrasted him with Yang Kai. The accusation against the rice shop had started as a moral spectacle. Now its payment was sitting in the middle of the street, ringing louder than every earlier speech. Su Mu blamed Yang Kai for ruining both his plan and his name. He asked how to address the young man. Yang Kai refused to give him that advantage and told him to guess. Su Mu promised to discover Yang Kai's identity. He pointed out that Yang Kai had remained a trial disciple for more than 3 years. Then he vowed revenge and forced his way through the crowd. Yang Kai had not beaten Su Mu in a formal duel here. He had broken the story Su Mu wanted people to believe. For Su Mu, that was apparently reason enough to turn embarrassment into a future threat. After the accused men slipped away, the rice shop owner warned Yang Kai that offending Su Mu could bring trouble. Yang Kai accepted the rice the shop offered, returned toward High Heaven Pavilion, and noticed that Su Mu did not ambush him. He reasoned that pavilion rules forbade needless killing among fellow disciples. A direct attack outside could bring consequences. A formal challenge looked more likely. That did not make Yang Kai relaxed. He could not judge Su Mu's full strength. He suspected Su Mu stood near the peak of the tempered body boundary. That meant Yang Kai needed to train harder. The rice solved one immediate problem. The revenge problem had longer shelf life. The aftermath gave Yang Kai a clearer problem than the shop dispute had offered. Su Mu had been exposed in front of villagers, but he was still a fellow disciple connected to High Heaven Pavilion. Yang Kai could not simply assume the danger had ended, because the crowd had won one argument. The rice shop owner's warning and Yang Kai's own reasoning kept the future threat specific. Pavilion rules limited open violence, yet a challenge remained possible. Yang Kai therefore returned to the same answer he had used throughout the episode. He would train, conserve what he had, and prepare before the stronger person decided the next move. His caution was not fear without direction. It was a plan shaped by the rules around him. Yang Kai's decision to train harder also connected the village dispute to the mountain journey that followed. He did not claim he could defeat Su Mu immediately. He identified the gap, considered the rules that limited direct violence, and looked for a way to improve before a challenge arrived. The incense burner, herbs, leave request, and Black Wind Mountain search all grew from that practical response. The threat remained unresolved, but it stopped being only a warning and became a reason for every later choice. Yang Kai returned to training and discovered a new frustration. After merging with the Golden Skeleton, the ordinary foundation techniques of High Heaven Pavilion no longer felt powerful. Worse, he could only train for about half an hour each day. 12 hours existed in the day, but his useful practice window behaved like a shop that opened late and closed before lunch. He considered filling the rest of his time by sharpening knives or cutting wood. Then he remembered the Black Book. The earlier artifact had already changed his body and his training. Yang Kai now checked whether it had another answer hidden behind its blank-looking pages. The book described the Golden Skeleton's foundation and methods for cultivating the tempered body. On its 3rd page, Yang Kai found an incense burner. According to the book, the burner could aid training, but only if he burned the right herbs inside it. Different stages needed different herbs. That gave him a practical route forward, but not a free one. The book had provided another tool. It had also handed him another shopping list. Cultivation, as usual, had managed to become both mystical and inconveniently supply-dependent. For his current stage, Yang Kai identified 3-leaved spirit flower and forbidden grass. The book said they were not especially valuable, but they did not appear often. The contribution hall sold them, yet Yang Kai did not have enough contribution points to redeem them. He decided to find them himself at Black Wind Mountain, which he believed was not far from High Heaven Pavilion. The plan was simple. Leave the next day, search the mountain, and avoid the bill. Nothing in the source suggested that the earlier unidentified campfire occupant was already connected to what followed. At dawn, Yang Kai practiced the first technique of the tempered body record. Later, while sweeping at the contribution hall, he received a small herb book from Treasurer Meng. The book covered medical properties and where herbs could be found. Yang Kai then applied for 3 days of leave through the General Affairs Office. This was not a dramatic departure with banners and witnesses. It was a trial disciple, a small bag, a borrowed guide, and a very specific desire to find plants. But it was also the first time his new training plan carried him beyond the pavilion on purpose. The incense burner changed Yang Kai's training problem from a vague lack of power into a list of usable conditions. His foundation techniques no longer felt strong after the golden skeleton merger. His daily practice time was limited. The Black Book then supplied a mechanism: burn the right herbs, release fragrance, and support training. It did not promise an effortless breakthrough. It asked for rare plants, contribution points, knowledge, and travel. Treasurer Meng's herb guide helped with the knowledge. The 3-day leave created time. Black Wind Mountain supplied the risk. Yang Kai's progress had become less about waiting for a miracle and more about assembling the exact pieces the book required. Black Wind Mountain initially felt calm. Yang Kai enjoyed the breeze, collected a sharp-teeth herb, and found the search harder than expected. He pushed farther in and noticed that the vegetation had died away. Then he saw a familiar herb and checked his guide. It was forbidden grass. Yang Kai dug it up, pleased to have found one of the plants he needed. The mountain had already charged him in effort, hunger, and walking. At least it finally returned one useful receipt. By evening, Yang Kai called it a day, ate, and slept in a tree. The next morning he resumed training and searching, but his food ran low. He regretted not bringing more rice balls and wondered where food could be found in such a deserted forest. Then he noticed smoke. Yang Kai immediately judged the fire starter an amateur. That was a strong opinion from a hungry man with a very small travel menu. He followed the smoke toward an unidentified campfire and asked who was there. The next chapter introduced hunters, but the source did not directly prove they were the same campfire occupants. The mountain sequence also showed the limits of that plan. Yang Kai could identify plants, collect a sharp-teeth herb, and finally secure forbidden grass. Yet the deeper he traveled, the more the setting stopped cooperating. Vegetation died away. Food disappeared. He slept in a tree, resumed practice, and found himself counting rice balls instead of contribution points. The source kept those small details because they matter. A cultivator could carry an artifact and still be hungry. He could reach a new training route and still need somewhere to sleep. By the time smoke appeared, Yang Kai had gained one needed herb, but had become vulnerable to the ordinary problem of having nothing left to eat. The next story panel showed 2 hunters with bows lowering them, after Yang Kai explained that he was only collecting herbs. They invited him to warm himself by their fire. The older hunter introduced himself as Zhang Shan and said he and his son lived at the foot of the mountain, but hunted there to avoid starvation. Zhang Shan praised the boy as an experienced hunter who had entered Black Wind Mountain many times. The meeting stayed cautious at first, then softened quickly. Yang Kai had arrived worried about an amateur fire. Instead, he found people with food, bows, and the kind of hard mountain routine that made his herb search look almost organized. Yang Kai said he came from High Heaven Pavilion to collect herbs. Zhang Shan explained that his son had once wanted to cultivate, but had returned home because he was not strong enough. Yang Kai encouraged the boy to train by himself anyway. When the boy's stomach growled, he laughed and offered Yang Kai food. Yang Kai first refused because food was scarce in the mountain, then accepted after Zhang Shan insisted. While the hunters slept, Yang Kai left them herbs with wound-healing properties once crushed and continued on. The exchange remained small and practical: food for a hungry traveler, herbs for hunters, and encouragement for a boy who still admired cultivators. Alone again, Yang Kai felt a warm surge move through his body. He realized he had reached tempered body 5th stage. He reflected that he had gained 2 stages only days after obtaining the golden skeleton, even though his practice time remained limited. The breakthrough changed his confidence, but not his caution. At the 10-mile border, he gathered more herbs and caught a rabbit. Beyond that point lay wild beasts. Yang Kai admitted that with his current ability he could only run or become their meal. 5th stage was progress. It was not a permission slip to argue with everything in the forest. Zhang Shan and his son gave the mountain section a different social frame. They were not sect disciples with contribution points or a cultivation manual. They hunted because the family needed food. Zhang Shan spoke about his son's interest in cultivation and the boy's inability to enter that path. Yang Kai did not promise status or access. He told the boy that training could still be attempted alone. The boy then offered food to a stranger who was visibly hungry. Yang Kai later returned the kindness with healing herbs. This was not a transaction measured in pavilion points. It was a practical exchange between people dealing with the same mountain, each carrying a different shortage. A distant cry interrupted the search. Yang Kai recognized the hunters, bound near a web-covered cave, and found Zhang Shan trapped in spider webbing. Zhang Shan was alive, but his son had been dragged inside. Yang Kai could not free the web for another 1.5 hours, so he promised to save the child first. Zhang Shan trusted him and warned him about demonic spider beasts. Yang Kai entered anyway. The choice followed directly from the help Zhang Shan and his son had offered him. He had no clean solution. He only had a cave, a trapped father, an unseen child, and a creature warning that made the entrance look like terrible real estate. When Yang Kai heard the cry and recognized the bow, the earlier meeting stopped being a quiet interlude. Zhang Shan was webbed at the cave entrance, alive but unable to move, and his son had been dragged inside. The web could not be removed quickly. That detail prevented an easy rescue. Yang Kai had to choose between waiting beside the father and entering alone. He chose the cave. Zhang Shan's warning named demonic spider beasts, but the source did not give Yang Kai a precise map, a team, or a safe route. The rescue therefore began with limited information and a plain promise. Wait here, I will save him. Inside, Yang Kai found a spider-like beast among webs and corpses. The fight began immediately. The creature attacked, Yang Kai was struck, and he realized it was only on the first realm. That sounded reassuring for roughly 1 second. He also admitted that, at his current capability, the battle remained difficult. The beast's realm did not erase its claws. The cave did not provide room to negotiate, and the child remained somewhere deeper inside. Yang Kai kept moving through the webbed space, while the fight turned from an interruption into the only route toward rescue. Yang Kai found Zhang Shan's son poisoned and losing too much blood. The spider then sealed the exit with webbing. Yang Kai questioned what it was trying to do, but the practical answer was already visible. It had closed the route back out. He challenged the creature to fight to the death. The spider sprayed at him, struck again, and injured him. The cave had become a locked room with a wounded child, a hostile beast, and no useful shortcut. Yang Kai was not there to prove a point anymore. He needed the creature out of the way before the child's condition worsened. Pain hit Yang Kai hard, yet he felt an inner euphoria and continued. He noticed that the beast was not as powerful as it should have been, then used his own growing strength to overwhelm it. The source showed the creature taking repeated impacts until it stopped moving. Yang Kai asked whether it was dead, so the final disposition remained uncertain in the canonical record. What was certain was the immediate result. The fight had ended long enough for him to move. The cave's landlord had stopped collecting rent, at least for the moment. Yang Kai wrapped the poisoned child and carried him out of the cave. When Zhang Shan asked how his son was, Yang Kai did not pretend the problem was solved. He told the father to wait and left to find something. The rescue had shifted from combat to treatment. That mattered. The spider had been a visible threat. Poison and blood loss were quieter, and the source treated them as the more urgent danger after the fighting stopped. The cave forced Yang Kai to deal with several problems at once. The spider-like beast attacked in a confined space. The child was poisoned and losing blood. The creature sealed the exit with webbing. Yang Kai was injured, but he continued because retreat no longer solved anything. His later observation that the beast was weaker than expected gave him a narrow opening, not a reason to treat the fight as easy. When it stopped moving, he still questioned whether it was dead. That uncertainty stayed in the record. The immediate priority changed. He could finally wrap the child and carry him back to the father. Then he could seek treatment rather than celebrate a fight whose final result was not fully confirmed. Yang Kai used herbs on the child and said he remembered their effects clearly. He hoped nothing bad would happen, but he also admitted that the herbal medicine was too weak to do more than alleviate symptoms. They needed a doctor. Zhang Shan wanted to leave immediately, yet Yang Kai advised waiting until the child regained some strength. He then arranged a rope around the child's wrist and said he would return soon. Zhang Shan also asked why Yang Kai was not treating his own injuries, especially after losing blood. Yang Kai refused. The source showed him prioritizing the child's condition over his own treatment. Yang Kai's return from the cave made the treatment sequence deliberately measured. He used the herbs he knew, watched the child's condition, and admitted that his medicine could only relieve symptoms. The source did not turn that into a miracle cure. Zhang Shan wanted to move at once, while Yang Kai argued for waiting until the boy had recovered enough strength for travel. He also declined to stop and treat his own injuries when Zhang Shan raised the question. The decision kept the stakes clear. Yang Kai had enough knowledge to delay the danger, not enough to declare it solved. The doctor remained necessary, and the mountain rescue still depended on getting the child to proper care. Back inside the cave, Yang Kai found 3-leaved remnant spirit flowers. He explained that they grew in damp, dark places filled with many corpses, making the cave an ideal environment. The canonical evidence keeps this herb separate from the earlier 3-leaved spirit flower label. Yang Kai connected the discovery to having helped Zhang Shan and his son. Doing good had brought a return. He also found a red mushroom or glowing object not mentioned in Meng's guide and took it for later consideration. That object remained unidentified. The cave had started as a rescue problem and ended by handing him plants, questions, and one extra mystery he could not label. Yang Kai traveled with Zhang Shan and the child toward the village. There, Dr. Chu treated the boy. Zhang Shan pleaded outside while the doctor told him to stay out and allow the work to continue. Later, the doctor reported that immediate treatment had prevented the child's death. The child was stable, though still asleep because of blood loss. Zhang Shan promised to spend his life repaying Yang Kai. Yang Kai had entered Black Wind Mountain looking for herbs. He came out having found forbidden grass, a separate remnant spirit flower, an unknown object, and a family whose crisis had become part of his journey. Back at High Heaven Pavilion, Yang Kai's absence had become noticeable. Other disciples asked why he had not appeared to sweep, and noted that he had not been seen for several days. One rejected the idea that Yang Kai had simply left. He was described as too stubborn to quit, even after repeated defeat and demotion to trial disciple. Then attention shifted to a gathering nearby. The source did not identify its cause or participants. That was the closing handoff. Yang Kai had returned from the mountain changed, stronger, carrying unresolved artifacts and pressures, while the pavilion had already begun looking toward its next unexplained crowd. The final cave discoveries expanded Yang Kai's resources without resolving every mystery. 3-leaved remnant spirit flowers were named and described by their environment. The red mushroom or glowing object was not in Meng's guide, so Yang Kai took it without claiming to understand it. At the village, Dr. Chu confirmed that immediate treatment had saved Zhang Shan's son, though the boy would remain asleep while recovering from blood loss. Then the focus returned to High Heaven Pavilion. Yang Kai had been gone for several days. His sweeping absence had been noticed, and a crowd was gathering for an unexplained reason. The chapter closed with answers about the child but fresh uncertainty about the pavilion.